hello. I feel the need to say hello because it's been a few days. Just a nice little Easter break. I won't talk too much about what I've been doing because it was nothing, but for example, the tradition here is to paint hard-boiled eggs and then everyone picks an egg and you smack the eggs against each other on the same side. Whoever wins will have good fortune and health, I think is how it goes. So I have been thinking about the game this whole time, and this is going to be a lengthy capstone to the series. This won't be a full run, so if you want to watch gameplay, I think I'm done with that for now. I will take requests. I'm fine with doing standalone runs and stuff if you want, but it'll be irregular whenever I feel like doing it, because I think I've pretty much showcased everything I want to. Now before I start reading the Bestiary, which is the point, I want to read the patch notes from the announcements channel in the official server, because the newest patch is in the betas, and if you want to join that, join the server and find the beta code for that patch. It's nothing major, but it's not. I don't think the patch notes will be on Steam for the time being, so I'm just going to read them for those who are not in the server. Japanese localization has been more or less completely redone. I wouldn't know if it was bad before, but I assume it is, so fair enough. Or at least it had a lot of issues, I guess. Fixed a bunch of other localization issues in general. Okay, that pretty much confirms it. Ace is now correctly a mage. Interceptor is now correctly a mech. Huh, I don't actually know what Ace is. Maybe I'll find out when I read the Bestiary now. Interceptor... Huh. Are those the red and white enemies that dash towards you and shoot a spread of bullets? They weren't correctly flagged as mechs. You know what's funny about that? The tribal keywords used to not work against bosses. But due to the placebo effect, no one could tell. So it was only fixed when the developers looked at the numbers, or the code, and realized, oh, it doesn't apply to bosses. That's messed up. So they fixed that. That was back when the tribal keywords just gave you 25% damage versus the specific enemy type and did nothing else. I'm pretty sure. Just some history for you. More nerfs to Ward and Sword Phazon loops. I will touch on that later when I get to Ward, and I have some thoughts about nerfs like that. Maybe I'll be repeating myself, but still. Headhunter now properly damages microcore. Headhunter. Was that a unique gun? That's not Gun with No Name. I think Gun with No Name had previous fixes where it wasn't locking onto things properly. I'm not sure. I forget Headhunter. Was it the one with homing? Where you target a specific enemy and was the homing effect not working? Is that what that was? I don't know. I don't think I ever used Headhunter versus Microcore. But fair enough if it wasn't working right. Giant Gatling razors are now normal sized instead of giant sized. I've never seen what that's referring to. Okay, I have nothing much to say about that. Fixed a weird crash involving swarm hosts dying over portals, hopefully. Crash fixes are always good. That's all I have to say about that. Fixed an issue with wall-bound objects on re-entering rooms. I'm not sure what that issue is, but okay. Crystallized light now properly goes through walls. That's the unique, or not the unique, the active item I had as Arena Blaster that wasn't properly... It was basically not doing anything. The lasers are supposed to pass through all walls and rain down from above, like that one staff enemy in Temple. So I've experienced that issue, and I'm glad it's fixed. Fix the non-properly functioning attacks on Leviathan and Omniscient in the database fight. Okay. I'm glad. You see, I'm so used to things getting nerfed because people can't handle them that I just assumed those were intentional nerfs. Which is funny because everyone complains about late night, not those two. So good. Good. I'm happy about that. I was thinking, I actually forget how Omniscient worked before. I think Into Oblivion messed it up for some reason. But it was definitely really easy compared to the other database forms. So that's good. Arms Master can no longer switch away from a runic. The Chaos God is in the middle of eating. This is something I forgot to show off. It's kind of minor. If you bring a runic weapon through the entire Warden fight and get the Chaos God with it, in other words, you will almost never have this happen. Especially now that ammo has been reduced compared to previous versions of the game. I think this was hard to do, even in Relics of the Past when we had more ammo. I'm fine with ammo getting reduced, by the way. But, yeah. I think I would have struggled to show that off even if I tried. But basically, what I said about Grasp of Entropy countering red runic attacks, Chaos God will also do that to you if you have a runic weapon. And I really like that. It barely matters because you're going to have little to no ammo when you get to Chaos God anyway. It's just a cool lore thing. There might be a slight benefit to Chaos God doing an animation to destroy your weapon instead of doing an attack, but that's very marginal. It's not really gonna matter. It's just a neat detail. Necromancer souls vanish after a moment if no necromancers exist. Okay. I don't mind that. Saves us a tiny bit of ammo. It's very insignificant. But I think it's fine. Because, yeah, they serve no purpose then. I think it's kind of interesting that they can have halos and, for example, shoot those orange bullets at you from the orange halo, but they can still do that even with this change. So, yeah, no issue whatsoever with that change. Fixed a couple of crashes in the Ace of Storms fight. Ace of Storms. Is that... Wait a minute. Is that just the... Is that just Stormlord after the first phase where there's a timer and you can't get hit? Is the rest of the fight called Ace of Storms? Huh. I've just never heard that name before. Certain cards have been removed from the Gauntlet reward pool if they are not useful, such as being in sudden death. Okay. Wonder which ones those would be. If it's from the Gauntlet reward pool specifically, it's probably the Gauntlet unique cards. So, okay. Makes sense. They generally do that. They're not going to give you useless items that don't salvage into anything else. Kleins draws your amount of money in hub again. Don't really know what that means. Oh, actually, wait. I think I do remember. It appears next to the map. I think if you're hovering over Kleins and you have the prompt to talk to him. That's fine. I didn't even notice it was missing, but I'm glad it's back, I guess. Change some of the behavior for an attack in a certain boss's bat phase. Well, that's obviously Lucid Dream. Behavior? Of the enemies or of the boss itself? I have no idea what that means. It doesn't say that they nerfed it, so I'm not as concerned what it means. I guess I'll see if I continue playing after this beta patch goes live. Shotgun revolver damage increased by approximately 13%. I don't think I use shotgun revolver that much. I guess that's good. Like, I'm not sure if it ended up being weaker on average compared to regular, to revolver without shotgun. The shotgun style keyword, I mean. Gatling Thunderhead damage reduced by approximately 16%. It's still very strong. In parentheses, right? Yeah, Gatling Thunderhead was ridiculously strong before. I think just having Gatling made Thunderhead better. By a pretty huge margin, so this is a fine correction. I don't mind it. I think there were other instances where they nerfed something like this and it was still good. It just wasn't outclassing everything else. So I'm fine with that. Fixed an issue where Railgun dealt 12.5% less damage than it should. An unintentional issue? Huh. Okay then. I did think Railgun felt a little weak, especially versus single targets, so good. Good. Looped Malice engines will now correctly get angry if the only other remaining enemy in the room, that's in quotes enemy, is an Aegis. Is Aegis the name for the shields that can be attached to enemies? Huh. I don't think I even noticed that issue. Are there any rooms where there's a shield and... Huh. That's neat. I wonder if I can encounter a situation where this change makes a difference. Fixed swarm hosts not firing bullets on certain loops. Ah, so you did fuck it up. I knew it. I was very much thinking, like, damn, you really nerfed this thing into Oblivion with no regard that it would actually be just as easy on high loops as it is on loop 0. Oh, wow. Well, at least it's fixed now. Fix some music / sound effects in a certain boss's intro not being tied to the correct volume sliders. I don't know if I've even noticed that before, but good, good. So yeah, that's a nice patch. Mostly really good stuff. How long did I talk about that? Not too long. Okay. So all I wanted to do for this last part was just read the Bestiary at last. Kind of do a review of Into Oblivion. I guess I can start by explaining that, but first, about the mod I made to the game's soundtrack. The link to the Bandcamp is still in the description for the remix album, and I suggest you listen specifically to the Machines theme. Ex Machina, it's called, because Neozoid wanted me to show it off by fighting the machine again, but I realized that the track isn't actually different. I looked at the files, and I think specifically the files they're either in a different format, or for whatever reason the game is not detecting them, and it's using... I think the original soundtrack for the machine fight hasn't been replaced in my files. And I don't really want to mess with that. I don't think fighting the machine again... Like, I'd have to focus on fighting the machine itself. I wouldn't be able to do double duty and do the review of Into Oblivion. So I figured I would just point out, link in the description, you can listen to it yourselves. I think that's a fine compromise. However, I will listen to this, which is the regular floor 1 theme when you're not playing in hard mode. I stuck to hard mode though, so I don't think this even had a chance to play. Because when I switched to normal mode and replayed loop 8, I think it was, I hadn't modded the game yet. So yeah. Now, before I start looking at the Bestiary and talking about enemy design, which I think is going to be a lot of fun, I'll try to make chapters based on the different types of enemies, if you want to hear me talk about anything in particular. And I'll also do each category in English reading order, just to make it even easier to find specific parts of those chapters. I'm not going to chop the video up into too many pieces. I think Into Oblivion is really great. I think it's a good entry point to the game. I still think people should play the legacy versions, on PC anyway. I don't know if you can do that on Switch. Because, well, really, you shouldn't want to erase your own history, and people should care about the history of any art form, I think. And even the history of a specific game like this. So, yeah. But other than that, I think Into Oblivion pretty much unquestionably put the game in a better state than Relics of the Past. They got rid of the stupid life scaling in Temple, the changes to damage upgrades, although they were largely undone almost immediately after release, which is kind of lame. They were a good idea. It sort of feels like damage upgrades were just a mistake. At least damage upgrades that have no strings attached. I can see cursed weapons, the deal that cuts your life in half and gives you 20% damage. Stuff like that can be fine because it's much rarer, and if there's enough of a downside to getting a damage up, then it kind of balances out somewhat. The damage up is still insanely good, but I've played Astronautilus, and in Astronautilus, you must switch your weapon to gain damage. And even then you need to spend bombs in order for a new weapon to be rerolled into having a damage up in the first place. Also, most of your damage ups in Astro are like a temporary power-up, and you lose that part of your damage ups if you get hit even once. You lose all of that extra damage. Only your base damage multiplier remains. So based on that, honestly, Astronautilus handled damage ups better than Star of Providence. They really feel like a mistake here that the devs are now stuck with, and they have to live with, and it's going to constantly cause them problems whenever they're trying to make the game challenging and balanced. I would refer to damage ups in Star of Providence as an imbalance multiplier. Is a weapon overtuned? Now it's straight up busted because it can do up to double damage with added damage upgrades. Especially with how the balance of the soft cap is right now. But hey, I've accepted it at this point. They just need to keep reducing the amount of damage in the game with the soft cap, because right now I think we have the same problem as before, where most of the game is really easy because of damage upgrades, but now Floor 7 is a difficulty spike simply because it cuts your bonus damage in half. That's kind of silly. So most of the run I'm bored, I get to Floor 7 and now I actually have to play the game seriously. Clearly the intent was to have the game be consistently challenging across the board. And then even if you're really lucky, Floor 7 is still going to be really hard, but it's not going to be that much harder than the rest of the game. I can see what they were going for, I just wish they stuck to that. Scully? I should probably just look at the ships and talk about that as well. Scully is great. New Scully is so much better than old Scully. I think what they're going for with some of the modifiers is to mess with your stats, but still leave them almost exactly the same in terms of DPS. Like, I think High Caliber doubles your damage and halves your fire rate. On top of the little stat bonus it has. I think it gives you 5% damage as well. If they just made every module a mathematical equivalent to a 5 or 10% damage upgrade, but have that come about through alterations to how Scully works, I think that would be really fun, and it would make Scully fairly consistent. As is, still feels like some modules perhaps give you too much power compared to others. I think they should almost entirely just mess with how Scully works. The modules that just give you damage are really boring, and I'm including critical hits in that. Like, I got some large modules that just give you 20% damage, or even the tiny blue sword that gives you 5% damage. It's like, oh, there's nothing to think about. That's obviously just good. It's gonna take up the same space as a module that doesn't just make me stronger with no strings attached. You know? I think that's the biggest problem. Again, just shallow damage upgrades overshadowing anything that was much more difficult to develop and way more difficult to balance. What other examples did I want to give about Scully? Oh, let me emphasize the critical hit thing. A random chance to deal multiplied damage is exactly the same as a damage upgrade. You might feel that it's different, but you're wrong. It amounts to DPS. Like, there is a mathematical equivalent of crit chance that gives you the same amount of DPS as a 5% damage up. And any occasional high roll of multiple crits back to back is not going to be noticeable the higher your fire rate is. If you're high caliber, then sure, when you land a crit you're going to notice a huge burst of damage. And that can amount to you, in the context of this game, killing some enemies upon entering a room before they can do anything. So that's the main difference, is just burst damage in practice. Otherwise, damage ups, crit chance, crit damage, it's the illusion of choice. They're all the same thing. They all scale well together, so you kind of want all of them. Crits are boring, and no, triggering an effect on crit, like, what were the effects that I saw? Like a burst of bullets and a shotgun? I think that's the first ever crit synergy I found. There might have been something else. I forget. But crit payoffs are not interesting, because if crits are random, that's not going to change your playstyle. You're just going to occasionally roll a crit, and the crit is even stronger because on top of all the multiplied damage, there's also an added effect that makes it even stronger. So there's nothing practically different about that. And I bring this up because one of the devs was talking about giving Scully crits and revealed it as if, look at this cool thing I did. And I immediately said, oh, that's boring as hell. Is that the best thing you could come up with? That's what I was thinking. I didn't exactly say that, but I've been there. I've done that. In fact, I was just playing one of the UFO 50 games, Divers. I took a break from finishing it to play this, and it has random crits. They're no different from having 10% crit chance as Scully. Same thing, just in a turn-based game. Like, I've seen so many examples of that it just bores me. But anyway, I think I've talked about that for a bit too much. New Scully is better. Tweak the numbers so he is at a consistent power level, but functionally different. That's what I would want. And maybe get rid of the modules that just give you flat damage, because those are boring as sin. Otherwise, great job. I especially love the puzzle of fitting the modules together and choosing which ones to replace and locking in your decisions. Arena Blaster is an old ship. Maybe I should talk about all the ships, actually. All the uniquely functional ones. I love Arms Master. I think they executed this concept about as well as they could, and you can take advantage of virtually any keyword and any weapon with Arms Master's unique weapon switching. Like I said before in the series, you can do just enough fun combos where you use one weapon, and then you immediately switch and use the other weapon. But then after you've done that small combo, there's a cooldown on weapon switching that stops you from just endlessly abusing what would basically be animation canceling, right? So yeah, I guess if every weapon had its own separate cooldown, that can work, but I think this is probably just better and easier to work with from a development standpoint, probably. I've heard all sorts of stuff like keeping a sword in your back pocket to cancel bullets on the fly, which is kinda... Swords are busted, but that is cool otherwise. I like that. It almost reminds me of Zero Ranger, where you you use your other weapons, and then at the most opportune moment, you switch to your melee weapon, and you just kill stuff or reflect bullets when it's particularly useful. Keeping one weapon at full ammo so that you can get max ammo from ammo refill items is a cool tactic. Pack Rat is particularly great with Arms Master, and the ability to keep certain unique weapons is great also. The only issue is the reduction of ammo in the game, and the fact that the largest amount of ammo you're going to get is from random drops. Kind of makes it feel like sometimes you just run out of ammo, and you're stuck with a ship that's identical to other ships, but has no bombs, and thus has no upside. So that's the only issue. We need consistent sources of ammo, guys. Like, the way ammo is right now, it feels like I'm playing Enter the Gungeon, in that, gee, I hope a large ammo item drops exactly when I need it, because if anything less than that happens, it feels bad, because it's suboptimal. Like, oh look, a full ammo refill. Both of my weapons are at 90+% ammo. So that's actually worse than a small ammo item. You get what I'm saying? This is why the full ammo items from mini-bosses were such a big deal. I will forever feel like something is missing from the game because of that. I want to hammer this point home as much as I can, even if I'm belaboring it. Yeah, other than the ammo situation, I absolutely adore Arms Master. It's my favorite ship in the game. And as someone said, the gem is purple. I like purple. It's one of my favorite colors. Arena Blaster, I think, is kind of a close second compared to Arms Master to me. I like replacing my bombs with something else. My main problem with Arena Blaster is that some of the active items are way too familiar to other games. And the fact that some of the best things you can do with Arena Blaster is endlessly print items with, say, the active that creates a crate. I'm not a fan of that, because the other active items that are cool, fun, offensive sub-weapons and power-ups are much more interesting to use. Printing resources is obviously good, and since crates can give you ammo, it's kind of like gambling. Oh gee, I hope this crate gives me ammo so I can keep the ball rolling. I think you can also get items that restore charges occasionally, at least from random crates. I'm not entirely sure, but that's because I don't want to just abuse that one active and ignore everything else Arena Blaster, I mean, can do. So yeah, my main thing with Arena Blaster is I like replacing bombs with things that are more interesting and more fun to use than bombs. So, I just think having a second weapon is even more fun than that. And even more... there are even more permutations on how you can use that. Chaos, I've kind of said my piece. I think rather than talking about Chaos in general, I'm going to propose changes to it. First of all, I think randomly switching weapons during boss fights would be fun, so that you don't just roll a single weapon and it ends up being the same thing as playing, say, Null. If you happen to find the same weapon as Null going into a boss fight. I think that's kind of lame that the ship is not actually different from other ships in that circumstance. I think curses should be a thing with Chaos, if you think about it. Unless you get Hand of the First, you can never have a weapon with more than 3 keywords, so there's technically one empty keyword slot where a curse could go. Not that that's... the limitation of 4 keywords isn't really much of a thing, but I can't help but think that way because of past versions of the game. But now we have Hex, which has 6 keywords. When you bless weapons and that appears as an effect on the weapon, that kind of looks like a keyword, so... I'm not sure the limitation matters so much. Maybe it's fine if you can pick up curses as chaos, as just individual effects that give you damage and health, like cursed weapons do. And then you're stuck with that curse for a while. The only thing I wonder is how that's going to affect the weapon's ammo? But you don't have a specific weapon, you just have ammo. So maybe it would stop you from losing ammo? Maybe it could still have the benefits of a cursed weapon, that you can pick up ammo items to salvage them into money and max ammo. But I just think curses are a fun thing to add to Chaos, is all. When it comes to your weapon switching during boss fights, I would say if a boss has an extra phase, if there's some kind of transition that happens, then Chaos should switch weapons. If the boss has another life bar, Chaos should switch weapons at that moment. I just think that would be fun. Make Chaos more fun, and more chaotic, obviously. That's just what I think. Swords are busted, Overlord is busted, there's nothing much more to say. It's like... unless they change the base sword so that it's not inherently overpowered, in that it cancels the vast majority of bullets in the game. The developers definitely are not planning around the fact that players can cancel almost all bullets. I would say it's like probably 90% of the bullets that you can cancel with a sword. So they just kind of have to pretend that swords don't exist when they design new patterns. So swords become sort of another easier setting. Like the fact that I've switched swords off means that I'm playing an even harder version of the game. Basically. Swords are very cheesy is what I'm trying to say. And as long as swords are cheesy, Overlord is cheesy because he guarantees you an incredibly cheesy weapon. And then Null and D13 are identical. I think that's fine, because they're... the fact that you can play as either of them is more of a narrative thing than a mechanical thing, and I think that's okay. And I think the core shmup mechanics, just moving, dashing, the 8-directional dash that can become a full 360 dash if you don't move, works pretty damn well. I like dodging through movement, personally. So I appreciate that there are no iframes on the dash. And this is also why I don't like Blink, because it, I think I've said this before, actually. I would rather move and dodge, and Blink is also functionally different from the base dash in that it doesn't carry momentum and you can't slide along walls with it, and I don't like that. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Although Blink can now teleport you through one-tile walls, which is kind of nice. Before I move on to the Bestiary, how long has this been? Okay, this is going to be a long video, but I'm fine with that. It is kind of a big review. An unscripted, rambly review, but I hope a fun review nonetheless. Before I move on to the Bestiary, I'm on the screen because I want to ask a few questions to the devs. Why are some of the new keywords added to the base pool? Why aren't they here? Because when they added these to the game, they made them unlockables. They also made Swarmer Pack, which is, yeah, 2 keywords, a bomb, I think a cartridge as well. I'm not sure if this description gives you the full info. Yeah, they added all this stuff and they let you disable it, and they don't have it in the game by default. Which to me says that you're not really expected to always use this stuff. I mean, obviously you're not, because you're not going to have it at the beginning. And I wonder why something like Void is not in this list of unlockables that I can disable. It really should be. Like, there's not much use for scrap. Okay, care package which I can't show right now, its cost scales. It has a minimum cost, and then it scales to like a percentage of your current scrap. But that just reduces your scrap number. That doesn't mean that you're gonna be particularly low on scrap, I don't think. I'm pretty sure the minimum cost isn't that high. And even if you ran out of scrap, so what? People who want to make the game easier with care package would have to farm scrap so that they can actually start trying when they have the care package, which I'm not too fond of that, honestly. Yeah, I don't mind the care package either because I can ignore it. I don't need to use it, and it's not necessary. But the fact that I disabled swords, I disabled these keywords, I disabled second wind, time bombs, reflective, mirror bombs, I mean, left me with Void as the one thing that kind of makes the game easier if you have it. Think about it. The bullet canceling effect of Void is better than the purging effect of all 4 of these keywords combined. Now, yeah, enemies will still spawn other enemies upon death, but that's minor, and the enemies that they spawn will just cancel even more bullets when you kill them. Void disables all revenge bullets while you have it. The only exception is if you kill an enemy indirectly and its revenge attack triggers. Because Void, I think, only applies to the main shot that your weapon always creates, regardless of what other keywords it has, if I understand correctly. So that's what I would ask. Just put Void here. Make it cost like 100,000 or something. I forget how much these cost. The price doesn't even matter. I don't care. Make the price whatever you want. Just let me disable Void. Keywords, in general, I think keywords that are kind of blatantly good at what they do, regardless, and they apply to all weapons in the game, much like these, should be in here. Because I think Swarmer Pack is kind of different. It's sort of an exception because it's a lot of things in one. But yeah, any weapon can have any 4 of these, and if it does, and you encounter the enemy that is weak against these keywords, the game is easier in that situation. Just straight up easier. Now, just because Void doesn't contribute damage doesn't mean that it's not nerfing the game's difficulty. So yeah. But what example can I give of a weapon-specific keyword? I understand weapon-specific keywords being in the base pool, because you can effectively disable them by disabling the corresponding weapon. Like, they added, what was it called? Rupture to Spear. If I disable Spear, Rupture's not going to show up anymore, right? I guess that's all I had to say about that. Oh, there is another keyword that I also think should be here, and that is Frontload. I gave it a lot of thought these past few days. Frontload is one of those blatantly good keywords. Any weapon can have Frontload because every weapon with keywords uses ammo. And Frontload just gives you damage. That's it. There is nothing interesting about Frontload. If you're... say you're going into a boss fight, you broke open the weapon capsule, and you have a choice between a weapon with front load and a weapon that doesn't have front load. Which weapon are you going to pick? Which weapon is obviously better, especially in the average case, disregarding what the other keywords are? Going into a boss with full ammo, right? And the only other effect front load could have is making you pick ammo more often, because it effectively turns ammo into a temporary damage up. And I don't need to tell you, regardless of what the numbers on front load are, damage is good. Blatantly good. So that's another keyword I would like to disable, because I'd rather have my weapons be functionally different, because that's more fun. Having a weapon that just does more damage, ends fights faster, and that's not fun to me. That's boring. So, I don't mind front load existing. That's the thing about a lot of stuff they add. If it's an unlockable here that can be disabled, so people like me can make the game even harder for themselves, there's nothing to complain about. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about that patch I was reading earlier, it's going to add auto-aim to controller, which I'm not the biggest fan of because we already have homing and runic and gun with no name. So I can't help but wonder what the point of auto-aim is, because it's just kind of redundant with all of those effects and thus makes those effects worse. But I understand that aiming is more difficult on controller, probably. And I mentioned that I disabled auto-aim in Returnal because I didn't want to use it. So if I was a controller user here, I would just disable auto-aim and it's no big deal. It's an option there for people who want it. But yeah, I take specific issue with Void and Frontload because I can't opt out of using them. I think that was a good summary. Okay. My lips are very dry. And that's been quite a while already. Wait a minute, this is really unorganized. I was thinking, what else should I have talked about? And, well, just a second, actually. Might as well let this play while I take a sip. I love the Gauntlet. It is so much fun. The more stuff like that they add to the game, fun little challenges, like bonus stages, basically. I really enjoy it, and new bosses, new enemy designs, new level design with those enemies. In this case, not so much level design. It's more design of enemy composition, which is still fun. There's a lot of unique stuff in Gauntlet. What else? What else? The new loops are great. I do like the new loops a lot. I'm gonna touch upon my issues with how they've handled the response to their difficulty in a bit. But they accomplished exactly what they set out to do. Way less loops that make way more of a difference and have unique content on top of making pretty much everything in the game scale with loops at least a little bit. I like the loop changes to bosses. The machine on Loop 13 was a great challenge, and it makes it so that playing normal mode loops is its own experience. I think normal mode loops are kind of weird. I would have been fine if they abandoned them, because who are these people who want the game to keep getting harder, but also be easier at the same time? Like, I understand that the loops have exclusive content, so there's some logic there. But certain... like, if I understand correctly, loop bosses are missing their final phases on normal mode. So there's still a reason to play hard mode instead, so... I don't see what normal mode does exactly, but at least the machine gives you a reason to play normal mode loops. The way I see it, since normal mode loops are just a simplified version of hard mode loops with less elements there, I would always rather play hard mode loops, and then just fight the machine on its own, on high loops. The TLB was awesome. I guess that falls into the Bestiary, but it's not in the Bestiary, so I want to say that. Really flashy fight, really cool, really fun, great end to the loops, for sure. I like the washing machine pattern. I actually think it's such a cool and memorable challenge. Like, if nothing else, the last boss of Loop 13 should have an attack that freaking hard. Hard to read, even harder to dodge. And I'm almost good enough at it to get through it without getting hit. It feels a lot like, I'm gonna bring this up again, Overlord's first pattern in Phase 3 in After the End. It was a proper climax to the fight. Like, I don't think bosses should get easier as they go on. That makes no sense to me. There should be escalation, a proper climax, and an end to the fight. Unless you're doing something really unconventional with a boss fight, I think that's just good design. Because if if the fight is over after the first phase and everything else is just... what's the word? Seriously, what is the word? Damn. This is why I should write stuff down. Well, the rest of the phases of the boss are just something you have to go through that is unlikely to cause you any trouble, so it's kind of boring compared to the hardest parts of the fight earlier. That's the way I see it. This is the inverse. I think it keeps getting more intense, even though the main phases in between the patterns with the fields that make certain bullets intangible. I think those main phases are the same, sort of like Chaos God. But that's cool, because the patterns, there's quite a few of them. You're not going to see all of them in one main phase. I think it works out. And then you have the proper climax of the last pattern. And again, you don't have to sacrifice... I haven't said this before, what do I mean again? You don't have to sacrifice the climax to your boss fight to do some cool winding down section that's not actually meant to be hard, because the TLB does that immediately after the washing machine, where you have the disco ball pattern, as I call it, that I don't think can actually kill you. It's just there as an end to the fight, basically. That is the boss winding down after the climax. I think that's fine. And I think Overlord did that as well, because I didn't find the second and third patterns of its last phase nearly as difficult as the first. Although, by the way, the third pattern of Overlord was also nerfed, I realized, when I watched footage of the original Overlord fight. I just forgot. Because you're often so strong that Overlord doesn't manage to cycle to its last pattern in its third phase. So I didn't even realize, but there used to be small bullets in addition to the bigger blue bullets. The blue and white bullets, anyway. And it's so weird to me that they got rid of those. Like, who was being stopped by those small bullets? Monolith has a somewhat similar attack to Overlord's last pattern in the third phase. During its third phase. I can't quite explain. It's the one with... I think it's the same blue bullets that Overlord uses, and a bunch of the orange Vulcan bullets, and then the small round bullets. The round bullets accomplish the same thing in the Monolith fight that they do in the Overlord fight. They're like little caltrops that get in your way while you're dodging everything else. I mean, do I just have to complain that those round bullets are annoying until the developers remove them from the boss fight? Is that how we're doing things? You can tell that that really bothers me. But anyway, I'll make that point later. I think I've rambled for way too long without even touching the Bestiary, so I'll get to that. Ghosts. Yes. Undead, a lingering snapshot of somebody's past. And this is the new thing. Into Oblivion, they added these icons and stats that you can view by pressing tab. So retaliates on death, 50 life, 10 debris. I think there's a hard mode icon to show that they only shoot revenge bullets in hard mode. Or loops. Loops also make them shoot revenge bullets, just not as many. I think ghosts are really cool. They're simple, but they're used really effectively. They have a lore thing where they're the souls of people who've died, obviously, but I like how they interact with the big ghosts orbiting around them. I like the loop changes to their revenge bullet pattern. It's quite effective, as simple as it is, a triple spread. The bullets are not in a straight line, they're kind of staggered off to the sides, zigzagging, sort of. So they cover more ground than you realize, which I got hit because of that a lot until I got used to it, which I think is good. Like, it's supposed to trip you up at high loops, I think. Also, the level design places ghosts such that they will shove other enemies away from their starting positions. Enemies that move much slower than the ghosts do. They do this with the brown-robed electric mages and the soul extractor There's a room with a soul extractor with some ghosts behind it that will push the soul extractor out and towards you. Which you can take cover from it if you try to. It might get pushed such that your cover no longer works, and that's kind of cool. That was definitely a deliberate level design choice. And across the board, I think the enemies are used quite well in the level design. I'll try not to think of every possible permutation of an enemy being used in the level design. But yeah, ghosts are nice popcorn enemies. Fit the game well, used well. Crazy ghosts. Yes. I guess I'll only read the bits of lore, I guess. You can see everything else and pause if you want to. Former inhabitants of the facility didn't take kindly to intrusion. Crazy ghosts are a nice way to mix things up. They're much tankier than the regular ghosts because they're supposed to reach their little target where the X is. And I guess it's not a revenge attack, it's a suicide attack because they kill themselves to attack you. I think that makes sense to call it that. So you can often ignore them to save ammo, but shooting them gives you debris. If they blow themselves up, you don't get any debris. And it's neat. It also means that if you get a bunch of different ghosts and some of them are crazy ghosts, you can't just stop shooting to avoid any bullets being created, especially on higher loops. Because the crazy ghosts will almost certainly, especially on normal mode where the little X doesn't move, they're always going to blow themselves up if you stop shooting. And I think that's cool. It makes things more complicated and chaotic when used with other enemies. And the way enemies use these is essentially destructible homing projectiles that produce more bullets is nice. Ice Ghost? Yes. Contrary to popular belief, it's not necessary to refrigerate ghosts to keep them fresh. They're pretty similar to regular ghosts, they're just the floor 2 variant. They always fire revenge bullets, so there's no hard mode icon here. Alright, here's the stats. And effects. I guess, yeah, the freeze effect. Any ice attacks will slow you after damaging you, which combined with the relatively brief iframes that you have by default it's a threat of chain damage, right? But if you don't get hit, it doesn't matter, which is why I don't think about it too much. It's not like you can do anything to counteract the slow anyway. Lost Soul. I should have said the name before revealing it. That way we can test if I remember the name. So I did remember this one for the record. The soul exposed to power eternal is never the same again. Something is lost forever. They're like the endgame versions of ghosts with much more dangerous revenge bullets, and I like that. Specifically, the Soulmonger drops these, which makes it distinctly different. Its on-death effect distinctly different when compared to the Soul Extractor, because you can't quite dodge this revenge attack the same way, because it goes in every direction and there are no destructible bullets in it. Which reminds me... Or wait a minute. Only Crazy Ghosts have destructible bullets. That's one thing I should say. Crazy Ghosts, originally, all of their bullets were indestructible. I think on the old loops it was still true even when the number of bullets scaled up, so that was pretty crazy. Did I really just say that? Anyway, moving on. I won't bring it up now. I think I get what they're doing with destructible bullets in Into Oblivion. I just think it's a bit... Like, destructible bullets are very ineffectual now. They're a means to nerf patterns rather than a mechanic to think about, and I'm not a big fan of that. I would prefer if there were patterns designed around destructible bullets and destructible bullets actually mattered. Hellsinker makes destructible bullets matter. I'm trying to think of another example. I guess destructible bullets are not that common, but that's why I want to see Shmups use them in interesting ways. Right now I would say Star of Providence uses destructible bullets in a similar way that the Nier Automata uses them specifically. Maybe they matter a little bit more than that, but in Nier Automata they're so slow, and you have a machine gun that can mow them down before they get anywhere near you. And they basically don't matter. So yeah. Similar thing with the fact that all weapon types pass through an infinite number of destructible bullets in Into Oblivion. Giant Ghost. I need to get used to saying the name before I select. Tired of solitude and unlife? Feel like you've lost all sense of identity? Join the ring today. I do like how giant ghosts change the behavior of, I think specifically, I've never thought about this actually, I don't remember how many rooms do this. Is it regular ghosts or ice ghosts as well? Or does the giant ice ghost command the ice ghosts and the giant ghost command the regular giant ghosts? I specifically really like the loop changes where while orbiting a giant ghost, the small ghosts will periodically fire bullets in all directions relative to where they are in orbit around the giant ghost. I don't know if I explained that particularly well. If you've watched high loop runs, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I also like that the giant ghosts begin to fire bullets regularly on high loops, so the thing there is, since giant ghosts and regular ghosts produce revenge bullets, the fact that they'd also do something before you kill them makes you want to kill them, but killing them creates a different problem, which is an interesting dilemma from an enemy design standpoint. Same thing with the giant ice ghost, although there's a nice, I guess I'll read its thing first. Desperate to preserve their memories, some ghosts approach absolute zero. Where freezing them slows the loss of their memories, or is that just a joke? Because it's ice. I'm not going to overthink it. A neat nuance about the giant ice ghost is the icicles can destroy destructible blocks, I've noticed. So that's pretty neat. If you don't consider that, it can actually mess you up in some rooms. I always like little nuances like that. Gestalt. Oh, it's Eternal Gestalt. Really? But there is no regular Gestalt, right? I mean, Gestalt is just another word for a ghost or a soul, I think. But was it German? Anyway, that's not important. Ultimately, the soul is simply fuel. The essence of the past burned to make future. They add a lot to the atmosphere. I like the way they teleport whenever the background fades out. And then when it fades back in, the Gestalt is in a different place. And the lighting on the Gestalt also is in sync with the background. It's really good. They're very simple, but they're just effective enough with their gimmick. And they're kind of spooky because of the way they move around, of course. Hermit. Yes. We got some new management, boys. It's the ghosts, then you, then me, then the cat now. Right. That is how it is. One thing I really like that the Bestiary now tells you stuff like this. So there's no more... Like, they don't need to make it painfully obvious or figure out a way to change all of the graphics in the game to clearly indicate contact damage. People can just read it here. And maybe changing the visuals so you can tell at a glance would be better, but I don't know. There's just too many enemies in this game. And I don't even know how you would convey the lack of contact damage on some of them. You can spawn other enemies, yes. I actually think the Hermit is the icon for that, yeah. I don't have too much to say about these guys. It's interesting that they run away from you. Since they have a limit of only one ghost spawned at a time, there's reason to ignore their spawns and try to dodge the spawns and kill the Hermit first. The loop changes. I guess I can talk about loop changes. I don't always have much to say. The homing shots make them considerably more dangerous and annoying, but I don't mind it. I got used to it after a while. I think when they start firing two homing shots, the leading one that moves faster seems to track you harder. Or maybe it's just because the one that's lagging behind is so much slower that it's not really going to reach you, but either way, pay more attention to the frontmost homing shot, of course. But still keep in mind that the one trailing behind homes in. Wise guy, I did remember that. Why didn't I say it? Now it seems like I read it. I'll get used to it before this is over, I'm sure. This is going to be a long video. It's going to be like a Scully run. This cat has a very strange sense of fashion. Instead of summoning ghosts, they just shoot you dead. I do think it's kind of neat that they're limited to a cone of 90 degrees to the left and right, which also fits their sprite, so you won't have them, like, aiming directly above them. Or Gungeon has the thing where, let's say the spawn point of the bullet from your gun is right where my cursor is, with him facing this way. When he turns around, the spawn point immediately moves here in one frame. That annoys the hell out of me. But with the 90-degree cone, it's not that big of a deal. I just know that I'm safe directly above and below them. And I think in hard mode specifically is when they fire the fireball bullets that explode into flame shrapnel. And that makes it so that you still have to dodge something even when you're in the safe spot. Of course, the cool thing about enemies like this is that although there might be safe spots where you can hide from them, staying in those safe spots is limiting your movement if other enemies have no safe spots. So when they're used with other enemies, I think they're particularly effective. Banshee. Damn, I'm still not used to saying it first. Uses attacks that can be destroyed in flight. That's a very weird way of phrasing that. Uses destructible bullets, right? Some just never come to terms with the infinite cruelty of life. I think Banshees have lost their identity with the way destructible bullets work now. If you're remotely shooting in their direction when they spawn their bullets, only the bullets that are indestructible matter. This makes me think, like, why didn't you just change destructible bullets so that dodging them is much easier if you don't destroy any of them, and that way if they block your bullets, you can just try to play better against a Banshee in order to be more ammo efficient. Like, that would be a more interesting... It would be a more interesting effect on gameplay than almost nothing. I fight a Banshee and I think, oh, it's like one of those enemies in Gungeon that just shoots bullets in every direction and does almost nothing else noteworthy. Why is Gungeon my go-to? I think I'm using Gungeon as a derogatory. I hope you don't mind that. I just think it's funny, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. This is a Legion. Yes. Makes me think of Castlevania's Legion. Tyranny of the Masses. Spawns other enemies on death. Fire attacks, which fizzle out in water. That's another nice thing to be told by the Bestiary, if you never noticed it mid-game. Legions are cool. I think the question that was asked in the Discord when Legions were first teased was, is this harder than a Chamberlain? And I was one of the people there who immediately said, yes, a Chamberlain is very simple compared to this. This can get really messy. It's like, oh, good. This was supposed to be harder. But yeah. Much like regular ghosts and big ghosts on high loops, I like that the Legion is a threat when you kill it and when you don't kill it. And that presents a dilemma. It's extremely weak to area of effect and piercing weapons, which I think is fine, because you're going to trigger all the revenge bullets at once. Which might actually be easier to deal with than triggering them at different points in time. But still, I think it's interesting that it's weak to a specific weapon property rather than just big damage. Ice Legion? Glacial Legion. Okay, I didn't pick the right ice word. Keeps frozen the last irreplaceable remnants of ancient blood. Can spawn other enemies. Wait a minute. Did the core of the Glacial Legion periodically spawn things? I can't remember. I think it does. It's just a tougher version of the Legion. I don't mind it. I think it appears more in Nowhere, which is appropriate. I'm pretty sure it appears occasionally in Floor 2 as well. I just can't remember. Yeah, same as the regular Legion. I like it. Possessor. I had no idea what this thing's name was. Those are its stats. Especially grave transgressions were met with punishments that even death could not reprieve. This thing is cool. What it does is when you break it out of its armor, it'll go to the nearest enemy, possess it, I guess, and increase its loop. I think it might give the enemy damage resistance as well, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. It's a cool thing because it's gonna harass you. I guess it's a ghost with a particularly nasty on-death effect, but if you're quick enough to kill it a second time, sort of, that's what it feels like, because when the armor breaks, it's like it turns into a slightly different enemy. Then, much like a soul going into a necromancer, you can prevent its negative effect. I think it's used well in rooms. And in some rooms, especially on high loops, you're forced to kill this thing and have it possess something before you can kill that other thing, which is really cool. Like I said, all the enemies are used well. If there are particularly noteworthy examples, I'll try to bring them up. And since this video is such a bloated mess and I can easily forget tons of things, just let me know. I think that's all I had to say about that. This is an honor guard. Yes. I'm anxious to serve beyond death. Cool degraded version of Guardian. Slightly different than Guardian, the way it... I really like how it takes advantage of the shape of the room it's in, because it creates those blue needle bullets at the bottom of every single tile. So it effectively has a different bullet pattern depending on the room. That makes it so much more interesting, although I think it only does that in hard mode. So yeah, I hope I don't forget to press tab on any of these. Not that it's that important, but I just want Enchanted Skull, right? I wanted to say, like, Enchanted Scully, so I guess that's close enough. Maybe it's just to make it one character shorter, I don't know. Hovers ominously, enchanted with powerful bone magics. When it comes to most temple enemies, I just like that they're tougher versions of existing enemies. It's like floor 6 all over again, but to a much more extreme degree. The shotgun blast of star bullets, it's kind of hard to read sometimes. Not that there's anything wrong with the visual design of the star bullets, it's just very chaotic. And then the homing bullets that you need to really pay attention to in general, and the way they blend together. So yeah, tough enemy. Fiery Enchanted Skull, okay. Nothing much to say about that. Oh wait, these use, instead of the shotgun blast of the other Enchanted Skulls, they fire the projectile that trails fire along the walls, creating fire bullets. So that's neat. They're affected by the shape of the room as well. It's commonly known that anything worth having is worth having on fire. Okay, that's a funny one. I love some of the Bestiary entries. I have no idea what this thing is called. Hothead. Okay. Notorious for their habit of falling asleep above doorways. This is sort of a unique enemy, I guess. Maybe it's based on something else and I can't quite figure it out. But it's really hard. I like that it spews flames out the top. It spews flames out of its mouth. I think it has a few other attacks. At least one or two other moves, but I can't quite remember. just a difficult temple enemy with enough distinct behaviors and bullet patterns. And I like the rooms with water, where there are a lot of these on top of other enemies. Or maybe it's just that one room. But regardless, it turns what would be a gigantic threat into a complete joke if you remember how fire bullets interact with water. So that's cool. I do not know. Bishop. Huh. Only through divine salvation can you breach the great boneyard in the sky. Oh, that's the symbol for invulnerability. That kind of looks like the thing that Zero Ranger puts on the boss life bar to indicate that it's invulnerable. It looks like the System Erasure logo. Wonder if that's intentional. I guess this is sort of like a Reaper, or a Reaver, I guess, that doesn't teleport around, it just stays where it is, and it periodically turns invincible. I kind of like any enemy design that requires you to have trigger discipline, and this is better designed than the host in the Binding of Isaac, so it's just good. I like it. I like its 360 spread bullet pattern, I think on high loops? Or is that a hard mode thing? I'm not actually sure. Either way, it's cool. It also tries to aim ahead of you, I think, so you can kind of shake its aim. Come to think of it, it feels like the difficult temple version of another enemy that I think is a mech. It's in here, probably, in this category. But yeah, not much more to say about that one. I think I'm gonna speed up as I get deeper into this. Boneling, okay, I just would have said skeleton. Last secret of necromancy is to wrest life from stone. Rest? I need to look that up, I've never seen that specific spelling in this context. Oh yeah, they don't give debris because they can infinitely spawn from the bone block. That's another very good consideration. I love that. Oh, is there any chance that I'll see the, apologies if this is annoying. Oh, there it was. Okay, I'll try to get that again. I'm so happy I thought of this. Oh, there it is. That is a skeleton from Bembo Quest, which is an absolutely hilarious shitpost side-scroller. I would highly recommend playing it, because it's just so funny. I think it's pretty cheap, that's why I got it. But it is also fairly fun to play. It's purposefully jank in level design and mechanics, I think. It's a very funny game. Yeah, I don't know what this thing is called either. Wraith. I will not remember that, it's too generic. Wraiths have always been highly prized as ambassadors between skeletal and incorporeal factions. Oh, so there's halfway in between ghosts and skeletons. I get the joke there, yeah. They're cool. It's kind of interesting that if you're directly above or below them, they'll run into you and deal contact damage. If you're in front of them, they'll dash towards you, and if you're anywhere in between those, they have that spread of pink needle bullets. So they kind of cover everything. I think I would generally stay in front of them, and I would occasionally, if I happen to be close to them, strafe around them to avoid the needle blast. But yeah. Nothing much to say, enough different attacks, tough enough to be a temple enemy, pretty good. What the hell is this thing called? Noxious Dead. I guess I'll read this first. Remember kids, too much television will rot your brains. See, there's things that are actual serious lore, and then there's that. The bullets Noxious Dead uses are so weird, and that's where the difficulty comes from. It's just getting used to the deviation they have and how to read them. I forget if only the frontmost bit of green gas hurts you or if it's the entire thing. I think it might be the entire thing. So, it's interesting how just the behavior and hitbox of a bullet can make an enemy feel unlike anything else in the game. It's part of why I like Shmups. Also, when it dies, it's either a plus-shaped revenge pattern or an X-shaped one with those same bullets. I guess that's sort of how the blast cores work. Imp? Yes, at least I remembered that. Fire is a primal sign of comfort or ambition. It's Temple's version of the Hermit. I don't have much to say. It doesn't spawn enemies, at least. I like the way it runs away if you get too close to it. So you kind of want to keep your distance. You can't fight it the way you do Hermits. And you can keep your distance because there's no enemy that it's spawning that would block your shots. So that's cool. Well, I guess one thing I can say about destructible bullets is occasionally ghosts are used in a similar fashion to destructible bullets, and they block your bullets. But my main issue is still that destructible bullets are so ineffectual now. Like, if enemies just didn't shoot bullets instead of shooting destructible bullets, it mostly would feel exactly the same. I think that's a problem. Angel? Yes. Is this sprite a Twin Bee reference, or am I just connecting loose dots in my head? Divine will made manifest, cauterizing the loose seams of chaos. I guess you can read into that, I don't know. The wings kind of remind me of Monolith. Yeah, I like their, I guess they swing swords to produce bullets, and I think those swords have hitboxes, and their other attack is where they shoot the large bullets that shoot lasers from the surface that they hit, which is a really cool type of attack. I haven't seen anything quite like that in Shmups. Especially when it's aimed at you and you can sort of manipulate it if you know what you're doing. Demon? Yeah. What is this place? Did I take a wrong turn at the maintenance system? Who's that scary fire guy? Oh no, he's looking this way now. I think he might be angry. Must stop writing. Is this someone who encountered a demon? That's a funny perspective. Uses those bullets that trail fire across walls. I can't help but wonder if the new pattern to the demon was added because I specifically made a point of arguing that this thing only has one attack and should not live for that long because it becomes artificially difficult. Because if it keeps using the attack in the same room, it's going to basically be the exact same thing. So it's like if there's some slight randomization to the flames, that'll get you, but it's mostly attrition that'll get you. This is when Temple had life scaling and I had that horrible experience fighting a demon that attacked like up to 6 times in one encounter just because its life was that high and I had little to no bonus damage. That sucked. But now I really like these guys. And good riddance to the life scaling. It was a terrible design decision. I will say that as many times as is necessary. There was nothing good about that. Other than, I guess making it so Temple doesn't get trivialized, but I would rather Temple was trivialized than any run that isn't strong enough getting absolutely screwed by the life scaling. That's all I have to say about that. Nephilim. These things are fresh in my mind. This was so cool. The bouncing angel bullet that whenever it bounces switches between a bullet that trails fire on the walls and the angel bullet that shoots lasers out of the walls. And not just a single laser, but one laser that expands into 5 lasers in both directions. So cool. Issue 666. Uncontainable value. Of course, it's the number of the beast. Yeah, I really love the loop-exclusive Temple enemies. They're scary, they're cool. They don't give you anything because they're just there to make Temple a bit more questionable of a tactical decision. Or a strategic decision, I guess. I don't know if I pressed tap here, but there you have it. This was Barrow, right? Oh, that persists even when you switch which enemy you're looking at. Issue 404, Soul Not Found. This is supposed to resemble Sinistar, right? Even if I'm wrong about that, I'm glad it got me to look more into Sinistar, because I kind of love that game. It's not just that Sinistar is memorable because he speaks and his voice lines are really cool. It's a really nice shmup. I like that there's no contact damage. The only thing is Sinistar himself if he runs into you, but it's not that you explode from touching him. It's that he sucks you into his mouth and chomps your ship into and makes it explode. I was gonna say into pieces, but he basically eats you. Otherwise, there are enemies that shoot projectiles at you and everything else just knocks you around but doesn't deal contact damage. 1982. Like, how many shmups since then just have contact damage on everything thoughtlessly? I find that really impressive that Sinistar is tough as nails and basically doesn't have any contact damage in it. And Barrow is cool. I like the way it breaks apart. Leaves, it drops bone blocks that the bonelings rise out of. Spits bones at you. I only encountered it twice, so I don't think I've seen every permutation of its abilities. But hey, it's another cool reason to visit Temple. Cavalier. Yes. Quite frankly, what other chance will I ever get to delve a dungeon? He's cool. On normal mode, he doesn't have the... I'm gonna assume that's an Aegis, the shield. And it behaves differently on him, because it doesn't move to any point around him. It's sort of stuck in a 90-degree cone in front of him. It sort of makes you move to the top and bottom of him, but you don't want to get behind him, because that'll cause him to dash to the opposite side of the room. All of these are the NPCs you can meet in the shop that you will also fight on the floor if you encounter the room they're gonna fight you in. They're all called challengers, and I like that they have consistent loot so that you don't... It's interesting. The consistent loot is almost balancing rewards around the fact that you encountered a random challenge, which might be a good approach for a procedurally generated action game in general. Although getting 10% damage from Cavalier is kind of OP, so bad example. For instance, one of the other challengers always gives you a flan. Or a flan. Don't know why I'm maintaining that nuance in pronunciation, I just think it's funny. So that other challenger's pretty damn tough, but you always get to heal for 3 after fighting it. As opposed to just finding a random amount of healing you may or may not need. I think there's something to that. Maybe I'll bring it up again when I get to that challenger. Yeah, Cavalier's cool. A guy with guts and honor in a hellhole place like this. Mechs. Is this an interceptor? Oh, it's a drone. What the hell is an interceptor then? Everything is made of something smaller than itself. I don't mind these things, I have nothing much to say about them. Yeah, like, that's it. I like that their bullet scale and width. That'll sort of change how you approach them, because maybe macro dodging even more is a better approach than microing that spread. But yeah, that's all I've got for those. They sort of resemble that one mini-boss, but that's a category here, I'll get to that later. Shuffler. Yeah, I completely forgot about that name. Ever caught off guard on housekeeping duty? No more. Blow away the intrusion like so much autumn leaves. What is this, a product that was marketed to people? As simple as they are, the way they're locked to bouncing between 2 tiles can be used in level design pretty well, and I think they are utilized quite well. And much like the previous enemy, the drone, I already forgot, but it's a drone, apparently. The way it scales on loops is a big deal. Because you gotta move because of the one bullet that's aimed right at you. but not too much because it's a spread on higher loops, and you can run into those bullets. So yeah. Sentinel. Yep. One of the oldest enemies. It was in the first ever version of the game. Built to last eons, and I guess it will. Because I think the development of this game is going to go on for a few more years at least. It's fine. I like that it uses fire bullets. Also uses those medium bullets, so even if you had even if there was water, they would still be doing something dangerous. Otherwise, kind of a basic level 1 enemy. They don't scale in any interesting way on loops, so I don't have that much more to say about them. But it is an enemy that has multiple variants that get tougher and tougher as you progress through the game, and I like that. Heavy Sentinel. Yep. An excessive solution to all worldly problems. These are the ones that shoot out a stream of fire, and when you destroy them, they use the red bullets. When you destroy their ribcage armor, they only use red bullets. And I think the ribcage drops debris. So there are 2 points at which you want to be close enough for your debris magnet to pick everything up if you're min-maxing debris. There's just something badass about using the ribcage of a creature as armor, I think. Which is why I remembered the design of the Heavy Sentinel. It kind of looks like a creature. We'll get to creatures later as well. Eternal Sentinel. I've said this before, so I jumped the gun on pressing confirm, but it's fine. The service never ends. These things always carry an orange halo, and that's enough to set them apart. That looks less like a ribcage, and more like 2 sets of horns. Never thought too much about the visuals on this thing. Yeah, it's really cool when there's an Eternal Sentinel in the room, because you're like, do I kill it first? Or do I kill other weaker enemies that have less life anyway, so that the halo stays there and is much more predictable? I really like the halos. They're a great way of handling basically elite status. It's like the elite enemies in Isaac, but better and less tedious, because it doesn't mean that every enemy has more life just because it's elite. Scully! It's great to be your own personal assistant and bodyguard. It's kind of interesting that Scullys have the chance of firing a much tougher attack. I think their fire rate scales with loops, so it'll trigger more often. Otherwise, they're self-explanatory. I have nothing to say about them, really. But having an enemy that you can stream the bullets of is valuable in a shmup, because it makes you resort to that tactic, but then the rest of the level design enemy composition can make things more complicated than simple streaming. I'm gonna guess this is a cool Scully. Okay. I was quite right before. We can't hang out anymore, I'm cool now. I like that the random thing they trigger is a DNA pattern. It's cool that microing it is standing in the gap between DNA curves. And all of its bullets are wall phasing. I guess that's a way of putting it. Well, they're not phasing because they don't loop across the screen, so fair enough, actually, yeah. May ignore cover. They do ignore cover. The phrasing is actually weird. All of the cool Scully's bullets will pass through walls. Yeah, I like these things. The loop-exclusive rooms with them are really tough, but really awesome. I especially like the rooms where you have to dodge them and destroy keystones that will cause them to get crushed when you basically cleared the room. Yeah, they're just... the fact that their bullets pass through walls is utilized quite well. I guess that's all I have to say there. I think I remember maybe I died to one off camera and I saw that this is a Scarfy? Yeah. It's cute. So cold. Can't feel anything below my head. Bouncing bullets are, wait, how's that phrase? Uses attacks that glance off of walls. That's another... I've never heard it put that way before. Huh. Bouncing bullets are cool. They really mess with my head, and that's a good thing. It's a distinct type of attack that you have to... You sort of have to apply billiards skills to that. How is it gonna bounce off the surfaces? Yeah, I like them. I think they shoot icicles as their random tougher attack. And again, those can break destructible blocks. I don't know if that's ever really utilized in a room, but it would be neat. Although I guess how often they can do that is dependent on loop. Flaming Scully? Blazing Scully, close enough. Hothead. These things used to be awful in the old loops because the bullets that they fire in every direction, which I think are always 4 here. Those scaled with loop, and I think they either had no cap on the scaling, or the cap was so high that it feels like there's no cap. Eventually they just shoot hyper-dense rings of fire. So in the old loops, these were some of the scariest enemies in the game, believe it or not. Their main shot is interesting, that it has a fire trail that waves back and forth, and the entire trail has a hitbox. I guess it's sort of like those green skull enemies in Temple that I already forgot the names of. And if you're using a freezing weapon, those trailing bullets will just be a single bullet with no trail, just steam coming out of them instead. All fire, some fire attacks actually, are affected by the freezing keyword that way, which is an interesting nuance. Although it amounts to just reducing the number of bullets these enemies fire, which is sort of comparable to Void, just not much more narrow and much more reasonable than Void. What is this thing? This is what I was comparing the Bishop to in my head. Defoe? I'm gonna say, well, like William Defoe? That's the only thing I can think of. Welder Eternal. They aim ahead of you, and they're periodically invincible. They're only vulnerable when they shoot. Which is funny, it's kind of a stalemate. If they don't shoot, they're not a threat. If they do shoot, you can kill them. So that's their dilemma. I don't mind these things. I think enemies aiming ahead of you can be really annoying if it's a common way that the game is trying to trip you up, because then you just constantly tap the left and right movement buttons, and the enemy just keeps missing you. So it's just exploitable in a different way. Sure, streaming doesn't work, but now instead of streaming, I'm just stepping back and forth in one spot. Is that better? That's because I've seen enemies aiming ahead of you in many games. Like Doom Eternal abuses that behavior way too much, and eventually I just realized, oh, the moment the enemy fires, I stop moving in reverse direction. And I began exploiting that AI as well. It's only a problem when you have enemies aiming ahead of you and enemies aiming right at you. So I guess there is that, at least. That used in tandem with other enemies, it is pretty effective. Eternal Scully. Oh, Demi-Skull? Really? That's random, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the other Floor 6 variants of enemies are called Eternal, insert enemy name here. Maybe I just can't remember. Some Scullys have delved too deep. Oh, and again we have the hard mode icon, because only in hard mode can they inflict double damage. I like the way they scale, because I was used to strafing around them. I started to move as little as possible to avoid them on higher loops, because that's how their bullet pattern changed. I think their random, more dangerous attack they can use is a large bullet at high velocity and a bunch of smaller bullets trailing behind it, and all of them dealing double damage. I forget if that was hard mode exclusive though. I don't remember seeing non-double damage version of that. Not sure. Yeah, cool endgame Scully. I like it. Oh, and of course the most important part, capable of teleportation. They will specifically teleport when they don't have line of sight with you, and they can only teleport to somewhere where they do have line of sight with you. So that can make them much more predictable if you didn't know that. I think that's cool. So you can stay in a spot where they can shoot at you to keep them where they are, or you can purposefully break line of sight with all of them to move them to approximately the same location that might be advantageous. So yeah, that's cool. What are these things called? I have no idea. Drillbot. I guess this is an ambient enemy. It's not really much of a threat. They can steal some hits from you, but I think you actually have to shoot the body. I'm pretty sure the drill blocks bullets? Or is invincible? I'm not sure. It seemed to be the case. Tired of the endless digging. Tired of thinking. Tired of waiting. Why did they make a drill bot sapient? Self-aware. That's messed up. I do like that they destroy blocks. You sort of have to get them to come out. I want to see them used more, honestly. I want to see them in regular rooms, not just shortcuts. I think that's the only place where I've seen them so far. But I do like them. Blast Core. Your lot in life could always be just that little bit worse. I like that Blast Cores and similar enemies have revenge attacks, but in hard mode and especially on higher loops, they also do something really nasty if you try to damage them a little bit without killing them. So although you would like to kill all of them simultaneously so that you can, say, leave the room and ignore all of their revenge attacks, killing them quickly one by one is kind of encouraged by the fact that they have a continuous low life attack. It's kind of a catch-22, I guess. They're beefy enough that you want to damage them evenly. Doing that just makes things worse. But killing them one by one is also bad, so pick your poison, really. They're a nice threat, and I think they're pretty well thought out to be consistently a threat. Volt Core, yes. I have faint memories of someone else, but just barely. I guess with the Blast Core in the hub we can tell. I guess these things keep getting reincarnated so they can blow themselves up again, and they lose their memories. It's kind of dark, but it's kind of interesting, I guess. It's funny, this game is cute and dark at the same time. It just depends on the specific thing you're looking at, and whether or not you're paying attention to the lore. Same thing as the Blast Core, just with lightning beams. I think lightning beams are generally way more of a problem, because they require reaction speed. You gotta read and react to the telegraphs for them very fast. I can't remember what this thing is called. This is like the Floor 6 variant of the Blast Core. Eternal Core, okay. Probably the angriest ball of metal in the whole facility. Again, double damage only in hard mode. It's an endgame Blast Core. I don't really have that much to say about it. I guess it shoots out a lot of destructible bullets now, whereas before, those bullets would dissipate after traveling a short distance, or some of them just continued traveling until they hit a wall. I guess they kind of made the Eternal Core easier by adding destructible bullets to it. That's what destructible bullets accomplish. So they basically nerfed this enemy, on top of giving it loop scaling, so It's not really harder, it's just different now. And whenever they do that, it feels weird to me. Because maybe some of the rooms they use the Eternal Core in wouldn't work if it didn't have the destructible bullets, so I can at least understand that. But was there no way of you using it differently? Were those rooms so important that you had to change it in every previously existing room as well? I don't know. It's just when I get used to the game's difficulty and bullet patterns, any changes to them are jarring to me. Scaling them up to be harder is fine, because if you're not removing or rearranging anything, it's just gonna be the same thing but worse. Which is what I want. But, yeah. Wait, what even is this? I can't even make a guess, I'm not remembering what it is. Oh, saucer, of course. Probably one of the most dangerous enemies with bouncing bullets. It's cool how you can stream its bullets, but you need to keep in mind their full travel and how they're gonna bounce off everything. Again, thinking in terms of billiards, sort of. The battle for space had to be shelved in favor of the battle for everything else. Oh, so there was stuff going on in space, but then the space unit of the saucer was moved into the facility. Is that what this means? That's kind of cool. That's a fish. Yep. Same name as the boss. Yes, even a fish has a soul. These are mechs. Which kind of explains everything, I guess. I do like that they flop around outside of water, which is super dangerous at high loops, the way those somewhat random fast bullets fly out of them. It's like a magic art, but it actually does something. And it's kind of a danger. Also, their idle behavior on high loops where they shoot bullets does change some of the rooms, and there are occasionally rooms where you can destroy the blocks containing the water to delete the water. They're used well enough, I think. Crazy fish? Yep. They say if a fish reaches the top of a waterfall, it becomes an ice worm. Cool. They're just more dangerous versions of regular fish, sort of like the crazy ghost, but not really that different. Yeah, you gotta think about the fact they're gonna jump up to attack you whenever you pass over them. And that is something. The presence of crazy fish changes your tactics and how you move around the enemies. There's nothing more to say than that. I should move on. Turret. I find it weird that when Into Oblivion first released, they were firing a stream of indestructible bullets and then 2 more streams for like a triple spread of destructible ones. Maybe that would have been a common and somewhat threatening use of destructible bullets, but they quickly got rid of that and just gave them the additional triple spread of medium bullets after the initial volley of small bullets. I like you can destroy them by getting rid of every tile they could attach to. They can attach on all 4 sides and flip around if you destroy the tile. Maybe you saw that in one of the actual runs, I mean. This is the most boring existence imaginable. I hope a target practice comes by soon. Again, why are these things self-aware? What is this? I have no mouth and I must scream stuff. Heavy turret? Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess these are all the same enemy, just with different patterns. Shh, they're still sleeping. Or they're sleeping. Why did I say still? I guess that's sort of a hint that you want to hide so that they don't trigger their patterns. It sort of takes them a moment to start firing. So you can, I've used this tactic where you shoot at them a little, then you duck behind cover, then you shoot at them a little bit more, and that way you never really get them to attack. Although these ones only trigger when you're in front of them, where the laser sight is. These are one of the toughest because those fireballs that trail bullets sideways, just like one of Firewall's attacks, are dangerous. The homing bullets are kind of dangerous too. These are fine. I guess their attack is pretty dense, but it's not that bad. I think these things fire faster bullets than these, and those are lightning bullets, so weatherproof would make you immune to them. So there's still some nuances and differences between these, although they're all grouped together as one enemy here. Forget if I showed that. Crawler. Rumors say they have their own little kingdom somewhere between the cracks of the facility. I think the fans are speculating about that. It just seems like a joke to me. Or maybe some fable in universe. Obviously. I do think it's interesting the way you can cheese crawlers by standing up against a wall. I abuse the heck out of that, and I think it's intentional. It seems like some of the new rooms were made with that in mind. It's actually a neat trade-off when there are other enemies with the crawler, so I don't mind if that's a thing. It's another nuance of the enemy design, the way it plays out. Pipapede. Someday it will break out of this place and sprout through the clouds. Why did I close that? It's interesting how, like, Pipapedes, I love the name. They have a different number of segments depending on the room, so I guess that's just something you can set in the level editor. I think they could be used a little bit better where you would want to destroy their segments before them. I don't know if there's a loop room that forces you to destroy all of their segments before you can destroy the main piece that produces all of the attacks. I think that would be cool. Or maybe a loop room where the centerpiece is invincible because of those invincibility shields. And the thing you need to kill to make it vulnerable is behind like a wall of at least one Pipapede. Then the changes on loops where empty pipes will shoot flames in that direction would matter more. But the Pipapede is fine otherwise, and they do put other enemies behind the Pipapede in regular rooms, so it's used well enough. I just had some thoughts. I think it's super funny that when you leave this piece by itself with no additional pipe segments, it just flies at you at high loops and explodes into multiple fireballs and flame bullets. It's a mess, and it's a reason to be very careful with the Pipapede. I do like that. Mimic. Another failure. I guess they were trying to replicate the ships. Is this like an artificial... Oh, it's a mech version of the ships. If I understand correctly, the ships have human souls in them. Which actually reminds me of another shmup called Mechs, where I think the player ship contains the soul of this one guy relevant to the plot, but I won't elaborate on that. So I guess the mimics are attempts to make mech replicas of the ships that contain souls. I never thought about that much. The way these things change on loops is so awesome. They get more weapons they switch between on the fly, just like you're fighting D13 in the tutorial, but it's way more intense than that, and there are multiple D13s using different weapons that overlap with each other. Their weapons get more keywords, their laser has pulse waves. I'm probably forgetting other things as well, but yeah, I was really happy with the loop changes to these. It's very inspired way of making them harder. Furnace Maw. Old metal, new metal, but the people don't change. Is that a music joke? I think that's what that's supposed to be. I do like that it has one spread pattern that goes in every direction, one aimed pattern that goes right towards you. And it uses either one at random, so you have to react quickly. If it's the spread, don't move too much and definitely don't dash because you'll probably run into a bullet. If it's aimed at you, definitely dash so you can get out of the way of the initial mess of various fire bullets. And then after the dash, dodge the shrapnel of the fireball. That's the thing I want to ask. Why do large fireball bullets create destructible bullets? That I really don't understand. Like, were fireballs really used that much that they were an outlier in difficulty and had to be nerfed with destructible bullets? The part of the spread that's aimed at you is made of indestructible bullets. Or, you know, bullets that you can't destroy by shooting at them. It's a baffling change. I never thought those fireballs were that bad. They were only particularly bad on older loops, but from what I can tell, they don't scale as badly now as they did then, and I could pretty much deal with the old loop fireballs as well. I don't know, maybe people really hated funnel that much that they nerfed the large fire bullets. I don't know, the devs would have to explain that to me because I don't get it. I think the new scaling of the fire bullets is extremely ineffective and unthreatening because most of the bullets are destructible. Is this an interceptor? No, this is a hunter. What the... I don't know what I read in the patch notes. Maybe I'll figure it out eventually. The beginning of the war was marked by a wave of assassinations, not all of which were by living hands. I see. So this is... I guess this is the in-universe equivalent of drone striking someone. Retaliates on death. Right, that only happens in hard mode. Capable of teleportation. This is kind of misleading. I think they should probably come up with another version of this. I guess it's close enough, but they go into the background. That's what they do. They don't teleport. It's kind of cool that they don't have to... They can still deal contact damage, and because you can see them coming, it's fine that they can reposition themselves around the room that much. I like that when they do their revenge attack, they will continue firing their main bullet attack. And I especially love, I discovered in this playthrough, their revenge attack has friendly fire. So if you kill one hunter in hard mode, if you position yourself so that it blows up another hunter and then another, you don't have to shoot at the other ones. And if there's ever an enemy in a room with a hunter, you can try to kill the hunter right when you're close to that other enemy in order to kill it as well. I love stuff like that. Soul tank. Uh-huh. I mean, where do you store your souls? I like that these things damage themselves over time, so that even if you ignore them, there's a time limit. And how often they damage themselves is random, so sometimes they'll blow up very soon, other times they won't. And the ghosts they spawn are also randomized. It's not always the same ghosts, and I don't think it's always the same number either. So, through chaos, these things end up being compelling, and there are rooms where you can ignore them, kill other enemies, and then deal with them, and that's kind of the correct approach. Although if the other enemies are too beefy, you might be dealing with them and the soul tanks at the ghosts coming out of the soul tanks at the same time. So I guess it's sort of a gambit as to which thing you deal with first. With the soul tank specifically. Soul extractor. Yep. This is one of the most memorable enemies to me, especially with the sound it makes when you enter a room with it, which was added in the Halloween update, by the way, and the patch note for it was made soul extractors, I forget what number they gave, but some percentage spookier. Yeah, they always deal double damage, and I like that, because you really gotta pay attention to them. And honestly, the fact that they deal double damage makes them memorable. because they're particularly dangerous, and if you play badly against them, they can kill you twice as fast as anything else. Assuming you're taking hits at the same rate, you know what I mean. Please do not interfere with the extractors. They are after the ghosts, not you, unless you give them a reason. And yeah, they spawn ghosts much like a soul tank upon death, which I do like, because they're a big threat, but killing them does that. So again, do you kill them first, or do you kill the other enemies first? Kinda depends on the situation. Soulmonger? Endgame version of the Soul Extractor. I forget the difference in the bullet patterns. They feel kind of similar to me. The main thing I remember is they spawn crazy ghosts to flush you out of cover, because this and the Soul Extractor are very weak to cover. And I like that a lot. It's always a good idea to cover any weaknesses an enemy has if you want it to be a serious threat. Lest the souls go to waste. That's kind of a weird line. Bat. Every cave needs a... The humble bat. Truly a precious little critter. Nothing much to say. I like that they're asleep, and if you don't get too close and you don't shoot at them, they will stay asleep, which is unique compared to other enemies. And the sort of sound wave bullets they use, but not the sound wave unique weapon. You know what I mean. I'm just being a jackass. The bullets they fire on higher loops are fairly dangerous and turns them into a serious threat at that point. I like that. Blazing bat? Fire bat. Okay. Roosts whenever it's warm and cozy. It's hard for me to remember specific words for fire, ice. It trips me up a lot with the enemy names. These things are super deadly on any loop, especially on higher loops. Their flame trail, the bullets, they sort of drip down on higher loops. I really struggle with these things. They're probably one of the highest priority targets, but I do like that. They do add something to encounters. Sometimes you'll be kiting them around, but most of the time you're going to kill them as quickly as possible if it's only one or two. And avoiding waking these up is a way bigger deal than the regular bats. Big Scully? Giant Scully. I should have said giant. Just like the ghosts. Incoming bullets from the big giant skull. Oh, that's why I was thinking Big Scully, probably. I like the positional element to these guys. You don't want to get in front of them because they'll trigger the shotgun attack, is what I call it. On hard mode, I think? I think that's a hard mode exclusive attack. It's not documented here, but I'm fairly certain. It's another fish. I don't remember what it's called. Rockhead. Huh. They didn't want to reference Cave Story 2 directly with Metalhead, I assume. The ponderous, graceful rockhead cod. One snap of its mighty jaw could... Oh god, it's coming right for us. Was that like a documentary? That is the sign that this has been going on for quite a while. I woke up very late today and I just pulled an all-nighter. That was my alarm to wake me up. Maybe I should check right now. Oh boy. Oh lord. I'm pondering splitting this up, because just this alone is taking quite a while. Maybe I'll wrap up the machines and call it for now. I think the rest of this would fill out another video. I think going significantly over 2 hours is really pushing it. A much more threatening fish that actively chases you and tries to kill you It can attack you even outside of the water. I think it's used well in tandem with water and other fish. I don't have that much to say about it, and it's beefy. So the projectiles it fires will matter most of the time. I like the room that's full of water, and there are 4 of them. I think I encountered it in one of the runs. Reaver, I'm pretty sure. Oh! Alright. Reavers are not mechs, but this is a combination of a mech and a... Yeah, I just didn't realize it was this thing. Blast Reaper. Huh. A cool nowhere... Is this the first nowhere enemy I've seen in this? I do like the way nowhere combines 2 different enemy types. Issue 245. Object does not exist. Oh, I guess the temple enemies were using the same, I guess, lore text as the nowhere enemies, just to be consistent, because they are related to nowhere. Yeah, this is used really well in rooms to give you cover, because you can manipulate where they go when they explode. And, what else? The rooms with water, or the one loop room with water where you fight these, and it completely changes the encounter, because they're actually not that bad underwater, but there are a lot of them in a tight space, so it kind of balances out. Really clever use of mechanics with how these are used. And they're generally pretty tough late game enemies. Their fire spread, default attack, is quite the problem. Their on-death attack is also dangerous. I like the change that they now cancel their default attack to do their final attack when they run out of life. Maybe that's another way of phrasing that. Because before you had to sort of wait for them and it was tedious, and it made them way harder in an annoying way, because you couldn't speed up fighting them past a certain point. Technically they're easier, but I don't mind the way they were changed. That's Colonel. Wow, most of the challenges are mechs. Challengers, did I say that right? Anyway. I'm sick and tired of this war. Glad it ends tomorrow. Colonel is so scary on high loops, but he's so cool. I love... He uses the genocide weapon, right? That's one of his attacks. I love the way the medium bullets on high loops force you into the cone of the genocide attack, and then the moment they stop firing, you need to immediately get out of the cone before... that's clever, that's really effective. It makes the genocide weapon actually scary, whereas on lower loops and difficulties you can just stand below him and it won't hit you. And it's easy enough to micro-dodge the small bullets there. It's cool that I never thought about it, but he uses different power bombs to attack you. He throws them like projectiles, and that's so cool. I guess it's cool that he drops bombs. It makes sense. You might spend a lot of bombs fighting him, so he kind of recoups that, assuming you have bombs. If you don't have bombs, what happens actually? Have I encountered Colonel when I didn't have bombs? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, I like all the challengers. I do not remember what this thing is called. Nurse? Oh, Autodoc. Makes sense. Fascinating. The slime shows potential to harm, but also to heal. Does that explain why Autodoc uses... Oh, is that what the flan is? Never thought too much about that. I just thought it was funny that a food item is a healing item when you play as a spaceship. I guess healing from a flan makes sense with the drinks that the ships have. I guess I sort of remember the loop changes. The jars that spawn the little slime creatures that chase you, sort of like ghosts. will shoot medium bullets at you on high loops as well. I think it generally fired way more bullets. I can't distinctly remember the changes on higher loops, but it's just a really tough mini-boss, and if you get used to it, you can profit up to 3 life from encountering, and I think that's good enough. Like, I understand why this thing is so hard, but there's also incentive to be good at it, which is nice. You're not unhappy to encounter this just because it's difficult, and I think the flawn makes that so. Giant bat. I should have said that earlier. Oh well. A few enterprising souls realized the way to boss others around was to be bigger than them. The idea stuck. For a while I didn't encounter Giant Bat, and when it finally showed up on a high loop it really scared the crap out of me. Because its sound wave projectiles get so much tougher. Like, I swear, this thing was a joke in Relics of the Past, but now with the new loop scaling, it's no joke. It's really scary. It's neat that it gives you a map item and excavates a bunch of rooms for you. It's a unique reward compared to the other challengers. I like that it uses the bat enemies as projectiles. Like, those are not enemies, they just use the same sprites and animations as the bad enemies. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. I guess it's cute. Have I ever encountered it in a shop so I can talk to it? I don't remember. And that was the Mechs, okay. I severely underestimated how long this would take. So I'll do the other 5 categories. It shouldn't take as long, although the constructs are pretty large. Maybe I'll continue immediately after, maybe I'll take a short break, but I am gonna split this into 2 videos. So, thank you for watching.